You think coffee is the only thing that gets faked. Wrong. That creamer you pour into your cup every morning might not even be real cream. No milk, no actual vanilla. And sometimes it hides ingredients the label never tells you about. A test in the United States found that in some coffee creamers sold at Walmart and Costco, there were industrial thickeners, artificial flavors, even hydrogenated oils that have been linked to chronic inflammation and heart problems. So the question is no longer, does it taste good? It is, what are you really pouring into your coffee? The 5 products on this list have been recalled, flagged with warnings, or heavily criticized by consumers. And the most dangerous part. They come from major brands so familiar that you might already have a bottle sitting in your fridge without realizing it. This is why you should take a closer look right now. Number 1, Coffee Mate. Did you know that the creamer you pour into your coffee every morning might not contain a single drop of milk? That is the case with Coffee Mate, the most popular coffee creamer in the United States, found in millions of kitchens since the 1960s. What millions of people think is coffee cream is actually a lab-made mixture, no different from a processed industrial food product. Take a closer look at the ingredient list on a bottle of Coffee Mate Original. You will see hydrogenated vegetable oil, a fat that the FDA once warned was a leading cause of clogged arteries, heart disease, and strokes. Yet on the label, you will still find the phrase 0G trans fat. Why the contradiction? Because if a serving has less than 0.5 grams of trans fat, the law allows it to be labeled as 0G. So if you drink 2 cups of coffee every morning, day after day, year after year, are you unknowingly building up harmful fats in your body without realizing it? That is a question worth asking, especially if you are older, have heart conditions, or follow a low-fat diet. And that is not all. Pay attention to carrageenan, a thickener found in many Coffee Mate products. Even though it comes from seaweed and is marketed as natural, research has linked carrageenan to chronic inflammation, stomach pain, diarrhea, and even intestinal damage when consumed over time. What makes this worse is that carrageenan shows up most often in products aimed at people trying to live healthier, like non-dairy vegetarian or low-fat options. A bitter paradox. And have you ever noticed how the vanilla or hazelnut flavors in Coffee Mate taste unusually strong? That is because most of what you taste comes from artificial flavors. A label that says artificial flavor does not mean real vanilla or real hazelnuts. It means lab-made compounds, sometimes from sources no one can trace with certainty. Even food experts admit they cannot say for sure what exactly makes up a synthetic flavor. So the real question is, are you drinking coffee with cream or coffee with chemicals? The troubling part is that many middle-aged and older consumers have been using Coffee Mate for decades without knowing the truth. For them, this creamer is tied to family memories, morning routines, and the belief that a little sweetness never hurt anyone. But the reality is that it can hurt, especially when that little includes trans fats, carrageenan, and artificial chemicals every single day. Still, not every Coffee Mate product is bad. If you want to stick with this brand, switch to the Natural Bliss line. It is made with real milk, real cream, and real cane sugar, with a short and clear ingredient list. For example, Coffee Mate Natural Bliss. Sweet cream or vanilla has only 4 or 5 ingredients. No artificial thickeners, no trans fats, no synthetic flavors. A much better option if you are not ready to give up creamers altogether. And if you have completely lost trust in Coffee Mate, do not worry. You can make your own coffee creamer at home. It is fast, clean, and you control every ingredient. Here is a simple recipe: 1 cup of whole milk or almond milk, 1 tablespoon of maple syrup or honey for sweetness, and half a teaspoon of real vanilla extract. Shake well and store in the fridge. It will last 5 to 7 days. No emulsifiers, no carrageenan, no hidden flavors. Most importantly, you know exactly what you are drinking. For years, people thought Coffee Mate was a smart choice because it was non-dairy and low-fat. But low-fat does not mean low risk, and non-dairy does not mean healthy. If you have read the ingredient list on a bottle of Coffee Mate and still feel fine using it, that is your choice. But if you have never looked at the back label or never questioned what you drink every morning, maybe now is the time. Because the hardest habits to break are often the most dangerous ones when you do not realize what they are doing to your body. Number 2, Chobani Vanilla Coffee Creamer. Chobani once won over American consumers with its natural, healthy, and honest image, especially for those who switched to the brand's Greek yogurt as part of a cleaner lifestyle. So when Chobani launched its coffee creamer, especially the vanilla version, many people picked it up without hesitation. Because they trusted it. Because they believed Chobani was one of the few brands that resisted going down the industrial path. But what is the truth? Chobani Vanilla Coffee Creamer, even though the label says made with real vanilla, was once caught up in a lawsuit over the fact that its vanilla flavoring did not come from real vanilla extract. It turned out that the flavor came from a mix of ingredients lumped under natural flavor, which can legally include synthetic compounds or extracts from vague, unverified sources. While the word natural sounds safe, it does not guarantee any nutritional or authentic quality. And for people on special diets, those with allergies, or anyone who trusted that real vanilla meant actual vanilla, this felt like a major letdown. The issue was not just about wording. It was about a sense of betrayal. You thought the product you carefully chose each week was the healthier alternative to industrial creamers. Then you find out it was just a polished facade. What could feel more unsettling than that? If you read the label on Chobani Vanilla Coffee Creamer and saw made with milk and cream, you might assume it is not heavily processed. But look a little closer. You will also see cane sugar gum arabic, and that same natural flavor we just talked about. Not the worst ingredient list out there, but far from the simple, pure image Chobani has always promoted. As one food expert put it, they are not lying, but they are not telling the whole truth either. That is what leaves many savvy consumers uneasy, especially in a time when trust in food labels is not what it used to be. And if you are watching your sugar intake or dealing with diabetes, you should know that this creamer carries a fair amount of sugar, about 4 to 5 grams per small serving. Will you really stop at just 1 serving per cup? Or will you unknowingly add 10 to 15 grams of sugar every morning just from creamer, all while thinking you are drinking something healthy? For people committed to healthy living, the problem is not sugar itself. The problem is lack of transparency. They can live with a little sweetness. What they cannot live with is being misled. That is why after the lawsuit over vanilla flavoring, online forums, wellness groups, and customer reviews on retail platforms were filled with backlash. Many one-star reviews had nothing to do with taste. They were about trust. And if you were someone who chose Chobani instead of Coffee Mate, that sense of betrayal hits even harder. Because it did not come from a faceless industrial giant. It came from a brand that built its name on being different. To be fair, compared to other creamers on the market, Chobani still uses fewer additives, real dairy, and no trans fats. If you are not too strict, it can still be considered a passable choice as long as you know what you're drinking. But if you are the type who cannot accept such a wide gap between label and reality, maybe you are ready to walk away from the game entirely. You do not have to buy any creamer at all. A splash of unsweetened nut milk, a drop of real vanilla extract, and a touch of honey are enough for a morning cup of coffee. No big promises. No bold lettering on a bottle. Just exactly what you chose. So now ask yourself, do you drink creamer for the flavor or for the peace of mind? And if that flavor comes from something no one is willing to spell out, does the peace of mind still stay in your cup? Number 3, International Delight. International Delight is no stranger to anyone who has ever walked past the colorful creamer aisle at the supermarket. With cheerful packaging, sweet names, and flavors ranging from French vanilla to Cinnabon and pumpkin spice, this brand seems designed to make you smile from the very first sip. But one day, the company's name started showing up in FDA reports, not for awards, for urgent recalls. In March 2025, more than 75,000 bottles of International Delight were recalled across 31 states, for a troubling reason risk of spoiling before the expiration date. The recall affected two of its most popular flavors, hazelnut and Cinnabon. At first glance, it may sound minor, but consumers had already reported symptoms like nausea and discomfort after using the product. What made it worse was that the creamer continued to appear on store shelves in several states even after the recall notice was official. Which means if you do not follow food news closely, you could have something risky sitting quietly in your fridge without realizing it. Have you ever wondered if the reason you felt off in the morning was not weak coffee but the creamer you poured into it? Do you ever really check the bottle of creamer you buy every month, or do you just grab it because it is the familiar flavor? That kind of habit is exactly what International Delight counted on. Because once a brand becomes part of routine, people stop checking labels, stop questioning, stop being cautious. The issue is that no one thinks of creamer as a product that can spoil like fresh milk. But the truth is, creamers contain milk or milk derivatives. If they are not stored properly, or if there is a production issue, the risks of bacteria, mold, or spoiled ingredients are real. Yet not everyone knows this or is clearly warned. This is especially concerning for older adults who live alone and are not in the habit of checking recall notices, and for anyone with a weakened immune system, dietary restrictions, or existing health conditions. For them, even a minor spoilage can cause serious reactions. So the question is, how could such a big brand like International Delight let this happen? And more importantly, how can consumers know if they should continue to trust the product at all? There is no easy answer. But one thing is clear: trust, as intangible as it seems, is the biggest factor in whether you put that product back into your shopping cart again. After the incident, many people shared online that they cleared International Delight from their fridges, not out of fear, but because they realized they had been too careless. Someone admitted, "I just thought it was safe because it smelled like Cinnabon." Another confessed, "I never thought I needed to check the expiration date on a bottle of creamer." The issue is not just product quality. It is the way we get lulled by sweet flavors and attractive packaging. Have you ever bought a bottle simply because it gave you that holiday feeling? Have you ever assumed that something sweet and warm like cinnamon bun flavor could not possibly be harmful? If so, this might be the time to rethink that habit. Because a bottle of creamer is not worth gambling your health, especially once you are past 50, and your body does not bounce back as easily as it used to. If you still want to use International Delight, always check the expiration date and look up recall information on the FDA site or the company's website. But if you are no longer comfortable with the idea of hidden risks from a bottle that could spoil before its time, maybe it is time to step away. Coffee does not need to taste like dessert to be good. Sometimes a splash of real milk and a drop of real vanilla make your morning cup far safer. So do you actually know when and where your creamer was made and whether it was part of a recall? And more importantly, are you sure that what makes you feel off in the morning is your coffee and not the creamer hiding behind its sweet, inviting scent? Number 4. Mo-Che Premium Non-Dairy Creamer. Here is a surprising truth: the product labeled premium, proudly stamped non-dairy, and packaged to look more upscale than most supermarket creamers, is the very one leaving many people uneasy. Mo-Che Premium Non-Dairy Creamer was once seen as a healthy alternative for those switching to coffee without milk or sugar, especially for people who are vegetarian, lactose intolerant, or trying to cut down on animal fat. But non-dairy does not always mean good for you, and it certainly does not mean safe. In May 2024, a large shipment of Mo-Che Premium Non-Dairy Creamer imported from China was randomly inspected by regulators and found to contain sodium aluminosilicate, an anti-caking agent made from aluminum compounds. This additive is not approved for use in certain food categories in the United States. The problem was that this ingredient never appeared on the label, which means American consumers had no idea they were ingesting something long questioned for its safety when accumulated in the body over time. Can you imagine that the powder you spoon into your coffee each morning, something that seems harmless, might actually be adding trace amounts of aluminum into your system day after day? No one drinks creamer expecting to consume metal, but when labels are not transparent and trust is taken advantage of, anything becomes possible. And it did not stop there. Some mocha products were also found to contain high amounts of glucose syrup instead of natural sugar. For anyone on a low-sugar diet or living with diabetes, this is a serious concern. Glucose syrup spikes blood sugar rapidly, and without proper warning, it becomes a sweet trap for those trying to manage their intake. Think about it. How many people chose mocha simply because they believed non-dairy meant healthier? How many older adults, vegetarians, or people with heart conditions thought they were making a smart switch only to later realize they were misled by clever packaging? What makes mocha especially risky is that it is not a mainstream household brand. It is widely used in small coffee shops, buffet restaurants, and mid-range hotels. Places where customers have no say in what creamer is served, which means many people have consumed mocha without ever knowing the brand name, let alone checking its ingredient list or recall history. You may have used mocha many times without realizing it. If you have ever sat in a hotel breakfast lounge, poured yourself a cup of coffee, and added a scoop of generic white creamer powder, chances are you have had this product without knowing. So how did mocha end up on the American market? The answer lies in small food importers who often lack the rigorous testing systems of big corporations. Sometimes what looks premium is nothing more than prettier packaging, not tighter quality control. Another detail that frustrates many people is the way mocha markets itself with claims like cholesterol-free. While technically true, this is misleading. Creamers without animal fat already do not contain cholesterol. Highlighting it is simply a way to prey on fear of illness rather than provide meaningful information. It is what you might call clever marketing. Not exactly false, but far from honest. And if you have ever fallen for the non-dairy buzzword, you know how frustrating it feels. You tried to choose better. But what you got was a mix of white powder, cheap syrup, undeclared additives, and synthetic flavors from unknown sources. Which raises the bigger question: if a creamer is not transparent about its ingredients, unclear about its origins, and unnoticed by consumers, when recalls happen, what exactly are you supposed to trust? The packaging? Or your own instincts? You can always go back to simple ingredients. A splash of unsweetened almond milk, a spoonful of honey, a drop of real cinnamon or vanilla extract. No need for premium labels, no need for non-dairy in bold letters. Just something you understand and something that hides nothing. Because sometimes the product marketed as premium ends up hiding risks in the lowest of ways. Number 5. Califia Farms. Califia Farms was once praised as the new hope for the plant-based food market. Sleek packaging, minimalist design, soft colors. From almond milk and oat milk to coffee creamers, everything carried that clean, wholesome, almost noble look that set it apart from old-school industrial products. But lately, the very clean image they promote has become the most questioned part of their brand. Let's start with something simple. Did you know that many Califia Farms coffee creamers, especially the vanilla and hazelnut flavors, have been criticized by consumer groups for using sunflower lecithin and locust bean gum? Doesn't sound like a big deal, right? But for people with sensitive digestive systems or those who have experienced IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, these ingredients have been flagged for causing bloating, gas, and digestive discomfort when consumed regularly. If you follow a whole food plant-based diet or switch to plant-based creamers because dairy doesn't sit well with you, this is something you can't ignore. Because not every product with a plant-based label is automatically good for your health. On top of that, some food labeling experts have put Califia Farms on the list of brands that create a health illusion. Why? Because their packaging always highlights words like no added oils, dairy-free, non-GMO, while at the same time not being upfront about the actual amount of added sugar. A single serving, just 1 tablespoon, can have 3 to 5 grams of sugar, but who only uses 1 spoon? With sweet creamers, most people add more. If you're using 2 or 3 spoons per cup and you drink 2 cups a day, you could be taking in 20 grams of sugar daily, almost half a can of soda, all while thinking you're sipping something healthy. So what's really happening here? Are consumers truly informed, or are they being tricked by clever marketing language? And if you're diabetic on a low-sugar diet or following an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, would you ever guess that you're sneaking sugar into your system through a product that was supposed to be the better choice? Califia Farms has also faced questions about its use of natural flavors. It's a phrase we've all seen 1,000 times, but in reality, it's one of the biggest blind spots in the food industry, especially with vanilla and mocha creamers. According to Consumer Reports, natural flavor can mean up to 100 different ingredients, as long as they start with a natural source. In other words, you might be drinking something that came from a plant, but has gone through layers of chemical processing that you'll never know about. Another frustration consumers often mention: why does Califia Farms, despite charging higher prices, still use packaging that prevents buyers from seeing the actual product inside? That's not a small detail. In food products, being able to see the liquid often helps customers judge texture thickness even if the color looks off. But with Califia Farms, everything stays hidden behind that frosted white plastic. You might think it's just about aesthetics. But sharper consumers have started asking, if a brand is truly transparent, wouldn't they let you see what's inside? Or would they rather cover it up with nice-sounding words on the label? Of course, it's fair to say Califia Farms is still a better choice than many industrial creamers loaded with trans fats. They don't use hydrogenated oils, they don't rely on powdered milk. But that doesn't make them perfect. And if you're someone with a sensitive system, or someone who believed you were choosing the best option, this might be the time to reevaluate. High prices don't equal high quality. Pretty packaging doesn't guarantee safety. And a plant-based label is not a shield against issues with digestion, blood sugar, or labeling transparency. You can absolutely keep using Califia Farms if you've read the ingredient list carefully, know how your body reacts, and feel it works for you. But if you're looking for a truly simple alternative, you can always make your own creamer at home with real plant-based ingredients. No gums, no hidden flavorings, no added sugar disguising itself as health. Because at the end of the day, what do you really want in your cup of coffee? A pleasant taste, or peace of mind that doesn't require reading the fine print on the back of the label. Now you know which creamers to stay away from, at least for now. But the final choice is yours. Will you keep buying out of habit? Or will you start reading labels more carefully, choosing more selectively, staying more alert? Don't let your morning coffee, the little joy that it's supposed to be, turn into a quiet cut against your health. And if you think this information could help someone else, share it. Because you never know, you might save someone from a hidden risk with just one simple click.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.